I think a lot of times bad stress comes from procrastination or our own guilt, or we know we should have done something. And so we internalize it, and it becomes way worse for us because of the way we're internalizing it.
Welcome to Mission of Missions. I'm your host, Jeremy Tiers. This is the show designed to help you grow, both professionally and personally, in the fast-paced world of higher education. Every other Tuesday, I sit down with senior leaders, new professionals, and difference makers from across higher ed and beyond, where we'll share tips and strategies related to challenging topics like student recruitment, leadership, customer service, enrollment marketing, and time management. So if you're looking for practical advice and conversations that actually move the needle, this show's for you. Grab your notepad or fire up your notes app, and let's get into it. Hey everybody, it's Jeremy Tiers, and this is episode 78 of the Mission Admissions podcast. Stress is something that we all deal with at different points in our lives, but recent surveys from the American Psychological Association suggest that our stress levels have increased over the past 5 years significantly, with the majority of Americans experiencing significant daily stress. Joining me today on the pod is someone who for 22 years was a head coach in a very high stress, high pressure industry of Division I high major college sports. Tom Crean is the former men's basketball coach at the University of Georgia, Indiana University, and Marquette University. And he currently works as an analyst for college basketball coverage on ESPN, NBC Sports, and he's also part of the FanDuel Sports Network broadcast team for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Coach, it's great to see you. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jeremy. It's great to see you too. So it's great to be with you in this very important topic for people. So I'm really appreciate you asking me.
It is, because stress is inevitable for all of us, right? And it's all about how we manage it. And so where I would love to start is, how do you think any of us, Coach, can differentiate between what I'll call good, say, healthy stress and damaging bad stress?
Well, it's very hard, and it's very hard because it all feels the same in many cases, and it hits you in different ways. And I think the most important thing in differentiating is it's got to make you think. You know, whatever makes you think and gets you to focus more is not necessarily bad stress, even if it's really coming in a bad way. I think a lot of times bad stress comes from procrastination or our own guilt, or we know we should have done something. And so we internalize it, and it becomes way worse for us because of the way we're internalizing it. Where good stress a lot of times is, you know, we're anxious about something potentially. We have an event coming up. We have a game, a presentation, a recruiting visit. You know, we have all these different things. And that's natural stress, you know, because you care, right? That's the first thing you got to learn a lot of times about the stress that comes in your life. It's there because you care. And so it really becomes, how do you manage that? And whatever makes you think, whatever brings you a focus is so important. And a lot of times the way you differentiate it, I think, is what you do to process it, which starts with maybe exercise or obviously breathing. I mean, we could talk for 2 hours about breathing and where that fits in and the different types of breathing you have to do to get back to where you need to be. But I think when you can think, when you can process, whether you're writing it down, whether you're internalizing it mentally, whatever brings a focus to you, it's not going to eliminate the stress, but it's going to help you. I think the bad stress, when we continue to play the worst situations out in our mind. Now in coaching, you do have to play the worst situations out in your mind. You do have to play down 5, 30 seconds to go, down 10, 3 minutes to go. You have to play those out. And so what might seem like bad stress is really just being prepared, right? It's going through the mentality and through the steps you've got to take to have a better feeling, even though you have no idea what the result was going to be, or if it's even going to happen. But it's that preparation mentally that can sometimes help bad stress turn into good stress. Because again, going back to the top, you thought about it. You thought about it, you prepared for it. And that's the most important thing I think you can do in trying to navigate which is which and getting ready either way.
Yeah, our mindset, our preparation, I didn't understand as a young professional, Tom, what those things truly mean to like our, I'll say, productivity every day. But 110% now at this point in my career, I understand our mindset is everything, our approach. I mean, I have a 16-and-a-half-year-old daughter now, and we're really trying to lean into this concept of habits with her because we're like, Olivia, your habits are literally pretty much everything you do every day. And you're either going to be successful because of your habits and your approach and your preparation, or those are probably going to be the things, right, that cause that extra stress. If managing stress is where, again, people probably need to spend a little more time, how do you identify those triggers of things that, whether it's, yeah, you know what, it's not procrastinating, or, it is in my preparation? What advice would you give somebody who's trying to identify, boy, all right, then how do I know what my triggers are?
Well, the moment you address it and you feel differently, okay, a lot of times it's what we do last minute, and it could be anything. It could be setting a flight, getting an appointment, saying no, saying yes. Those type of things that create that personal stress in us. The moment you handle it, you've identified it, right? And that's so important because procrastination is not something that just goes away. Like you have to attack it. And I think that's what you identify. And again, it goes back to this. You got to think it through. You don't need to overthink, but it's so, so important that you find that process that works for you, whether it's writing it down, whether it's thinking it through, whether it's putting it in your phone, whether it's verbalizing it to somebody. I mean, there's so many different ways. And it's everybody's got a thought for it, but it's what fits that individual person. So I think, again, no matter what, when you feel triggered by it, that's when you've got to do something to make your body feel different, whether it's the walk, whether it's the run, whether it's the gym, whether it's changing something. Think about how a phone call or think about how a text message or things like that can affect our moods at any given moment in a day. Well, sometimes you got to create something. You got to create something that is better for someone, okay? That say, okay, well, I'm stressed out about this, but you know what? I'm going to reach out to so and so and so and so. And all of a sudden you get that response back and it helped you refocus that, we have to help others. And the more that we figure out others in coaching, it's the same thing. The more stressed out you are, the more bothered you are by things, the more you have to dive into the film, the more you have to get on the court with the players, the more you have to look at something that inspires you. And I'll probably say this a few more times, inside these questions, but you have to change your own energy. And no matter what the trigger is, right? Because it's trigger. And a lot of times the worst thing we can do is overthink it. But when you feel it coming, you have to change your energy a lot of times. You have to create something different that brings you a new energy. And again, if it's something that you can control, setting the appointment, setting the meeting, the 1,001 things that we all deal with in different parts of life, the quicker you address it, right, the better you feel once it's done. And sometimes no is as freeing of an answer as anything else if it's something that you're just putting off, not wanting to do. And we all deal with it, right? It sounds eighth gradish, but we all deal with it. And it doesn't make a difference who we are, what our age is, where we're at. We deal with those type of things. But changing energy for yourself, and it's usually because you're trying to help somebody else with something, changes your energy, can really help you no matter what happens.
Were there specific things that you worked on with your teams, specifically with those young athletes, or maybe it was even assistant coaches or anybody else on your staff that, hey, guys, these are things that will help us remain focused at those high pressure moments? You've mentioned exercise, you've mentioned journaling, right? You've mentioned talking to other people. Is there anything else that you did that you feel like those really successful teams that you coached really capitalized on because you did those things?
Well, there's a couple things. And number one is you address it. You address it specifically. I'll never forget that at 15-16, when we won our last Big Ten championship there, and we started out the season, okay, we were okay, we were good at home. But then we go to we go to Maui and everyone's expecting us to play Kansas in the finals of Maui. We lose by 1 to Wake Forest. We come back the next day, we beat St. John's, but then we used to lose to UNLV on day 3. And so the sky is falling to a degree. Well, then we go to Duke for the Big Ten ACC Challenge, and we lose by 20 at Duke, okay? And it's nationally televised, the whole deal, right? And so when we come back, there's articles, and even in the Indy Star, like calling for my job and really ripping our team, ripping our defense. I mean, you name it. And so what I did basically in that situation is let people see it, and then you address it, because they're already all hearing about it. They're hearing about it from their families. They're hearing about it from their friends, from people around campus and things like that. Every time I've avoided going after something that I knew was out there, I've regretted it. And then the last thing I think you've got to do when you're addressing it, no matter where the stress level is, you have got to have a vision, right? You've got to have a vision for what you want to accomplish in your mission, what you want to accomplish in your position, what you want to accomplish with the team that you have. All right. And you have a reality, okay, that of where people are at. And the higher that you can move the vision, okay, from where the reality of people are, that's your energy that drives your team. The moment that the reality of where people are at gets so close to your vision, you don't have much energy to build. So sometimes this goes back to bad stress and good stress. It's a lot how you present it. You have to figure out what it is, address it, and help people figure out the energy that they need to change the process for their outcome.
So as a leader, then where's the onus on, if you see people that you manage directly, in your case, players that you were coaching, staff, right, that you're responsible for, where's the onus of, all right, I need to step in and help this person versus I need to get this person to take more, I'll say, personal accountability on it?
Here's the answer. You have to give the people that you're dealing with the right questions to ask. And a lot of times they don't know what those are. They really don't. And it's not that they don't want to know. It's not that they are ignorant to it. It's not that they are flippant to it. It's they don't know. Because a lot of times their parents don't know either. They've just been led to believe certain things by others. And so as a leader, you got to give people the right questions. And then along the way, they figure out, okay, what a good answer sounds like. That you can give them all the answers, but then they never learn how to process real questions. And so sometimes, even if you trigger somebody with 1, 2, 3 questions, and they've got some type of open-mindedness, growth mindset deep down in there, even though it's not being brought out, you get them thinking about the right stuff. You get them opening their mind. Now, all of a sudden, before they have the answers, they may have more questions. And that's not a bad thing.
So leaders, obviously, if we stay on the leadership note for a second, absolutely deal with stress as well. Like, I know you've talked about this, I'm sure, thousands of times over the years, right? But one of the greatest college basketball games that I can remember, right? December 2011, you're at IU, you're playing number 1 Kentucky in Bloomington at Assembly Hall, right? It's 71-70. Kentucky's winning. There's like 5.5, 6 seconds left, and Deron Lamb's about to shoot a free throw, and there's a timeout. I got to believe, tell me if I'm wrong, there's some level of stress there for you as the leader in the moment. But how do you, during that timeout, knowing you're at a critical juncture of the game in that example, not let that stress manifest on the team to keep them focused on how to finish the game, which ultimately you end up doing and winning?
Well, first I had to channel my anger because I felt we had blown the enormous opportunity. And we'd been up 10 with just under 7 or just under 8 to go. John had called timeout, and we come out and we totally play into the hands of Kentucky. We stopped doing what's working. And so at that point, I had to immediately adjust from anger to a plan. Now, again, you play these plans out in your head, and even though not necessarily had I played it out in the Kentucky game, I played it out numerous other times. What do we do in that situation? Because the whole game came down to they had 2 fouls to give before we were in the bonus. Okay. So at that point, you got to give your team hope on how we're going to get fouled in that situation. But at the same time, you got to you got to take them back to their preparation, which was the play that we had run. It was a play called 5. Okay, because it was a 5-second, about a 3, 5, 3 was at the tops. It was a perfect 5-second play, 7, 9-second play, something we'd practiced many times. And I believe we had actually practiced it that morning. Okay, I do believe because we would go through situational things at our walkthrough. So I had to go through that, redraw it, but make an adjustment. And the adjustment was where we were going to put a player in the play, hoping that they may intentionally foul us, because we wanted that. We had to give ourselves a chance to get intentionally fouled, I felt. And we did. And the adjustment, we didn't end up needing it, but we made it. Okay. And then Cody Zeller ended up, because he had the freedom to audible the situation, to either set the screen at midcourt or to go up into the backcourt and set the screen. And that's what he chose to do. And it ended up being what looked like a miracle shot was really just an adjustment to a play that we had run numerous times in practice. So they were prepared for the moment with the play. We had to make sure they were prepared mentally to believe we could still win, which meant me as the leader, even though I was doubting it because I thought they would foul us, or I had to give us every belief that we could do that. That's exactly what happened. So I think I handled it well. I think my expression at the end was probably, it was relief stage, but it was not, I was still in combat zone. I don't apologize for it, right? Like I was still in the combat zone of the fact that I thought we were going to lose the game because of the foul situation. But I quickly got over it and enjoyed it, and it was a fantastic win. But in that moment, I was still in combat zone.
I'm curious, and again, maybe this has been, talked about before. I don't remember reading it, so I'm curious. Did you and Christian Watford, after he made that shot, ever at some point have a conversation about, all right, besides preparation, right, and relying on habits, do you think there was anything else that in that moment allowed his mindset, if we're going back to mindset and how we approach, stress when it's right there, to really focus on things like, his follow through, for example, in that shot?
Exactly. That's the thing. That's the thing, Jeremy. You just said it. Because there had been thousands and thousands of times of reminding him amongst other players to hold your follow through. Right? It's not just about shooting the ball, it's finishing the shot. So there's a lot of things that go into that. The landing, where your eyes are. But most importantly, it's the follow through. And I think it wasn't as much reminding him there as the countless times that it had been said. And literally from where I stood when he took the shot, it was a perfect follow through. So absolutely. But that's, we could talk about this for hours. It's so important because people think everything comes down to coaching, to teaching, to learning, to processing. Okay, here's what it comes down to. It comes down to reminding. You have to remind people countless, and it doesn't matter if they're in the NBA, college, it doesn't make a difference. You are constantly reminding people who they are, what works. We remind our kids, right? Why would we not remind our teammates? Why would we not remind our people? Why would we not remind our employees? Why would we not remind the people that we're trying to bring into our fold what makes them successful? Why would we not do that?
On that note, reminders without question, preparation without question are important. What do you do, though, knowing that, okay, we are going to fail? Because, again, we're all human. There's not a human who doesn't fail. So stress and adversity, I would argue, when that happens, even though we prepared, as a leader, you've reminded, and that shot doesn't go in, or that, student that you think is coming to your school, right? If you're listening to this and you're an admissions counselor, decides to go elsewhere. How do we focus on not letting our confidence take too much of a hit where now the mistakes start to compound because of the stress, Tom?
Well, I think it's always important to take it personal. I really do. I don't think you take it personal to where it paralyzes you, but I think you take it personal to the point of what can you check. And people would tell me this early on when I was an assistant coach as a recruiter. Well, you can't personalize it. You can't take it personal. Well, why did I spend all this time in recruiting if I'm not going to take it personal? I wanted to coach the person. I wanted them there. I think when it paralyzes you, when it freezes you, when it creates doubt in you, is when it's a problem, right? And there's two things that we have to control constantly, all right? That we don't let doubt get created in us, and we don't let anyone or anything take our spirit. I think that's so important in this world of teaching and learning and retaining. Is you've got to be able to move on, but move on better because of either what data you pulled up, because of what lesson you learned, because of what was said about the presentation, because of what you felt about the recruiting. And then one of two things happen. You either dwell on it and it affects you, okay, and it bothers you into the next one, or you've learned from it and it gives you another energy to go right back at it in the next step and you feel like you're better. That's like, for me, every time that I watched the film intently by myself before I ever went anywhere else with it, I was a better coach. Now, did I address teams after games that were good? Yes. Did I address teams after times when it was bad and I regret it? Absolutely. Did I have staff meetings at times after games with film and it turns into event session? Yeah, but I hated those. When I got in that room and I got into that film, maybe with one other person taking notes, maybe with just me, that's when I was at my best. Because now I could look at it, I could address myself, I could address the decisions made, and then I could go from there. And I think the key to that is any leader has got to address themselves and the issues first.
Let's flip kind of the script here, Tom. We talked about leadership. What do you do if you're on the other side, though, right? So what do you do if it's, God, I know I need to go have that conversation with my boss about the workload or stress that I'm trying to manage and it's not working? Like, that's not a comfortable conversation for a lot of people to go and to initiate. What advice would you give somebody if, again, the stress has clearly gotten to be too much, the leader has not come and addressed it? How do you go have that conversation, for example, with your boss?
Well, I'm going to give you, there's a lot of different ways, but I'm going to give you one that I think has been fantastic that I learned. But no matter what you do, you have to breathe, right? You have to breathe. You have to work on your breathing. The last thing you want to do is go into a situation with an emotional bent. Okay. When you're going up the ladder of addressing something and you come in there with emotion, you may very well feel some emotion from the person you're addressing. But if you go in there with emotion, you put yourself at a disadvantage without question, because there's some narcissistic leaders that we've got to go in there and see. That everybody on this podcast knows that, the people that they deal with. And so, or people that have those kind of tendencies, you got to go in there, and the last thing you want to do is give that person a reason to downplay what you're saying.
Last thing I want to ask you about is, let's say we've prepared, we're doing what we think are positive things to keep our mindset right, we're addressing issues when it comes up, leadership is reminding us, and for whatever reason, the stress level is still significant. How do you start the process, whether you're a leader, whether you're a 23-year-old young professional, how do you start the process of saying, I need to ask for help?
Mm-hmm. I think it starts, the people that are closest to you can't be surprised when that moment comes. That makes sense. Okay. Which means you didn't shut out the people closest to you. Could be a spouse, could be a great friend, could be, if you're really young, could be a parent, could be an aunt or an uncle. It could be somebody like that. You have to have given other people a chance to help you before you get to the point where you feel like help isn't even enough. And all the things we've talked about in this, the exercise, the breathing, the studying, the changing the energy, absolutely yes. Okay. Can't neglect those things, because you're not going to get to a positive place if you neglect those things. There is somebody around you, okay, and they may not necessarily be in your workplace, that you can trust, okay, even if you haven't brought that to them. And I'm not even sure I totally recommend it being in the workplace. If you have it, great. But Don't feel bad if you don't, because a lot of people don't have this. There's so much, work is so transit right now. Find somebody that you can say, here's what I'm dealing with. What do you think I should do? Who could talk to me? Right? Like that was, you don't need a person sometimes. Sometimes it's a book. Sometimes it's the Bible. Sometimes it's a sermon. It might be a podcast, right? It might be this podcast. Whatever it is, there's something you can do constantly to give yourself a chance to feel different. Doesn't mean it's going to solve it, but it can help you feel differently.
Such good advice there. Tom, I end every episode with something I call fun rapid fire. So I'm just going to give you a handful of things and I want to get some quick answers from you on each, okay? All right, you're a Central Michigan grad. Bigger rival, Eastern or Western Michigan?
Western Michigan, without question.
You have to choose one. Tacos at Cali and Tito's or pizza at Mother Bear's? Which one are you choosing?
I'll go with the tacos.
Okay.
I'll go with the tacos, yeah.
And for those who don't know, those are both favorites. One's in Athens, Georgia there. One's in Bloomington.
I never got a pizza named after me at Mother Bear's. Come on, I got a little bit of an ego too. So I think Archie Miller had a sandwich named after him or something, or a pizza. Like he might have had his own pizza. Yeah, I got a little ego. I got a little ego there. So I'm going with the tacos.
Best dunker you ever coached? Who is it?
Oh, wow. That I can't know if I can rapid fire that. I'm gonna whatever I say, it's gonna be wrong. The most vicious dunker when he wanted to be would be Anthony Edwards. Because when he wanted to throw a vicious dunk. The most electric dunker would be Victor Oladipo. Yeah.
I was going to say somewhere Victor Oladipo when you said Ant's
Victor
name
was
is...
electric. But when Anthony wanted to uncoil, it was incredible. He just doesn't uncoil that much.
Who wins at a game of horse between John and Jim Harbaugh?
Jim. Because Jim played basketball longer. Well, no, yeah, I would still say Jim. Now, one-on-one, it would be Jim. John, it might be close. Because John has spent a lot of time with his daughter, Allison, played basketball. So he spent a lot of time on learning technique and things like that. But I'm still going to go with Jim.
And for those of you listening who are unfamiliar, Tom married their sister, his now wife, Joni.
The most competitive one. I got the most competitive one.
Joni's beating both of them in horse?
I know about in horse, but she's the most competitive in anything else.
Okay.
Right? She's highly competitive. Should see her play tennis.
Tom, I really appreciate you being on today. I think there's so much good stuff in here that's, going to help a lot of people listening. And I just appreciate your time today and look forward to the next time we talk.
Absolutely. It was great. I really appreciate it too, Jeremy. Thanks for asking me.
Thanks for listening to Mission Admissions. This show is a proud member of the Enrollify Network, home to Higher Ed's largest collection of podcasts. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow, so be sure to check out our other podcasts, webinars, video clips, blogs, and more. Visit enrollify.org and subscribe for all the latest details and content drops directly to your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the digital workforce platform for higher ed. Learn more at element451.com.